My daughter-in-law tapped her champagne glass, leaned into the mic with that fake sweet smile she wears like armor, and said, "Everyone, meet the woman who begged to stay in our family, even though she brings absolutely nothing." The room laughed, not nervously, not politely. They laughed like they agreed with her. My stomach dropped so hard I thought the floor gave out under me. My hands went cold, my throat tightened, and for one awful second I couldn't breathe. And while they laughed at me, my own son just sat there frozen, realizing for the very first time who he'd really married. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, like she wanted to watch the hurt land, like humiliating me wasn't an accident, it was the entertainment. Before I go any further, let me introduce myself. I'm Laura, I'm 61, and this was supposed to be the happiest night of my son Ethan's life. Instead, it became the night I finally saw the truth about the woman he married. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe so more people hear this story. All right, let me take you back. When she made that announcement, people at my table actually turned their chairs to get a better look at the woman who brings nothing. Someone even whispered, "Awkward." And that little whisper stung more than anything. It wasn't just humiliation, it was dismissal, like I didn't matter, like I didn't belong here at all. Then she said, louder this time, "Don't feel too bad for her, everyone. She's used to it." Another wave of laughter. My heart cracked so quietly it felt like a sound only I could hear. Ethan's face fell, slowly, painfully, like the truth was dragging him underwater. His smile faded, his shoulders slumped. He glanced at me with this look, this soft, broken look I hadn't seen since he was a little boy, afraid he'd disappointed me. And that hurt worse than her words. But here's the thing she didn't know. While she mocked me in front of 80 guests, while she basked in the attention, while she enjoyed every second of making me small, she had absolutely no idea what I'd been quietly collecting for months. She didn't know I knew. She didn't know I'd seen the lies. She didn't know what was coming. By the next morning, everything she'd been building, her reputation, her image, her perfect life, would be hanging by a thread she didn't even realize I was holding. And it all started with that one ugly speech at her wedding. Because right after she humiliated me, someone at her own head table slipped up, and what they said instantly exposed the first crack in her perfect little world. The moment her cruel speech ended, the DJ tried to smooth things over with upbeat music, but the room still buzzed with that uncomfortable, ugly laughter lingering in the air. I sat there, frozen in my chair, trying to swallow the burn behind my eyes. A 61-year-old woman, humiliated at her own son's wedding and pretending it didn't hurt. Ethan didn't pretend. He walked over to me with a stiff smile and whispered, "Mom, I didn't know she'd say that." His voice cracked. That alone almost broke me. But before I could reassure him, before I could say, "It's okay, honey, enjoy your night," something happened that shifted everything. A bridesmaid, her cousin I later learned, leaned toward another girl at the head table and whispered, "Not nearly quiet enough. She shouldn't joke like that, not with what she's hiding." My heart stopped. The other girl elbowed her sharply. "Shh! Do you want her to freak out again?" The word again hit me like a slap. My daughter-in-law, Avery, had been all smiles, all grace, all perfection tonight. But that one whispered sentence cracked the surface. I wasn't the only one she tried to make small. I wasn't the only one she snapped at. I wasn't the only one she humiliated. And suddenly, the humiliation she threw at me felt less like a joke and more like a pattern. I wiped my hands on my dress and forced myself to breathe. "Mom, please don't take that to heart," Ethan said softly, but he'd heard it too. I could see it in his eyes, the worry blooming behind his smile. Still, I didn't want his wedding night ruined because of her cruelty. So I placed my hand on his cheek, smiled as warmly as I could, and said, "Go enjoy your night, I'll be fine." But I wasn't fine, not even close. As the night went on, guests avoided eye contact with me, like embarrassment was contagious. Avery floated around the room holding a champagne flute like a trophy, laughing loudly, glowing in her own spotlight. But every time she passed her head table, those bridesmaids straightened up, lowered their voices, avoided her eyes, and Avery knew it. I saw flickers of panic behind her perfect smile, quick little glances, jaw clenches, tension in her shoulders. Something was wrong. The girl who mocked me so proudly was terrified of something much bigger than me. And that's when the next crack appeared. During the father-daughter dance, her father, a stiff, nervous man who kept tugging at his tie, whispered something into her ear. Avery froze mid-dance, not paused, froze. Her smile faltered, her hand slipped from her father's shoulder. Her face went pale, ghostly pale. She looked straight at me, not with smugness, not with superiority, but with something that chilled me deeper than her insults, fear, real fear. The kind you can't fake. Her father squeezed her arm hard, like he was warning her. Avery nodded quickly, too quickly, then plastered her smile back on. But I'd already seen it. Something was unraveling, something she desperately didn't want exposed. And she had absolutely no idea that the one person she humiliated tonight, the one woman she thought was powerless, already held pieces of the truth in her hands. Pieces she didn't know I had been collecting for months. And after what happened next, those pieces would form a picture that would shake her entire life apart. I wish I could say I was imagining it, that the fear in Avery's eyes during that dance was just my wounded pride trying to find meaning in her cruelty. But minutes later, the truth hit the room like a silent explosion. I was seated near a floral arrangement when it happened, quietly observing, trying not to look as small as she made me feel. The music was loud, people were dancing, and that wedding bliss should have drowned everything out. But it didn't. Because Avery's phone buzzed on the sweetheart table. Once. Twice. 3 times. She ignored it at first, still pretending to enjoy the moment. Then it buzzed again, longer this time. Her head whipped around. She rushed to the table, snatched the phone, glanced at the screen, and the color drained from her face so fast it made my heart lurch. Her hand shook, not trembled, shook. I watched her swallow hard, like her throat suddenly refused to work. Her eyes scanned the ballroom, frantic, searching, calculating. She wasn't looking for Ethan. She wasn't looking for comfort or help or love. No, she was looking for who might have seen. Her father hurried to her side. She shoved the phone at him under the tablecloth, trying to hide it from the guests. But not from me. I had a clear angle, and I saw just enough of the text preview to understand. Documents missing. Deadline, lawyer says. My stomach clenched. Documents, lawyer, deadline. This wasn't wedding drama. This was something big. Her father read the message, and all the blood drained from his face, too. He clenched his jaw, whispering furiously, I told you this would happen if you pushed her today. Pushed who? Pushed me? Avery snapped back, her voice shaking. I didn't think she'd actually do anything. She's too weak. Weak. That word cut deeper than everything she'd said in her speech, because she genuinely believed it. She believed humiliating me meant I was harmless, that I had no backbone, no boundaries, no consequences to give her. Her father grabbed her wrist, forcing her to meet his eyes. If she hands anything over, Avery, we lose everything. Everything. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too loud. What did I have that could destroy them? I didn't fully know yet, but they clearly did. And that terrified them more than any accusation ever could. Avery whipped her head toward me again, this time not with fear, but rage. Raw, terrified rage. She marched across the ballroom like she was preparing to rip the truth out of me, but halfway there, she stopped. Because Ethan stepped beside me, offering me a drink and a soft smile. He didn't see her. Not yet. But she saw him, and the realization hit her like a blow. If she made a scene now, if she snapped at me or exposed her panic, Ethan would finally see her for who she really was. So she pivoted sharply, pretending she was heading toward the exit, clutching her phone like a lifeline. But her eyes never left mine. They were a warning, a threat, a plea, a storm all at once. That's when I understood something with crystal clarity. The humiliation tonight wasn't an accident. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a mistake. It was a distraction. She mocked me publicly, loudly, because she thought I might finally expose her privately. But what she didn't know, I wasn't done collecting evidence, and the most damning proof hadn't even surfaced yet. Avery didn't come back into the ballroom after that, not for the bouquet toss, not for dessert, not even for the final toast. She vanished, and so did her father. Guests whispered behind their napkins, pretending not to notice the bride's empty seat. Ethan kept trying to play it off, saying she was changing heels or freshening up, but with every passing minute I saw the confusion in his eyes growing heavier and the hope draining away. He knew something was wrong, he just didn't know how wrong. When the night finally ended and the last guest drifted out, Ethan walked me to my car in the dim parking lot. "Mom, did she say something else to you?" His voice cracked, and that broke me more than Avery's words ever could. I wanted to protect him. I wanted to shield him from the truth. But protecting him was exactly what got us here. So I placed my hand on his cheek, something I hadn't done since he was little, and whispered, "Ethan, sweetheart, you deserve someone who loves you, not someone who uses you." He frowned, confused and hurt. "Why are you saying that?" Because tomorrow morning his entire life was going to shift beneath his feet. But the truth wasn't mine to throw over him like cold water, not yet. So I kissed his forehead and said the only safe thing I could, "Get some sleep tonight. You'll need it." He didn't understand then. He would. I drove home in silence, my hands trembling on the wheel, but not from fear, from anticipation, because Avery had spent years treating me like background noise, an inconvenience, a burden she tolerated only because she needed access to Ethan. And my money. She didn't think I noticed the disappearing funds from the joint project Ethan and I had started before he met her. She didn't think I saw her forged signatures. She didn't think I kept records of every transfer she manipulated Ethan into making for her business. She certainly didn't think I had the original incorporation documents of her company, the very ones that still listed me as partial owner and primary guarantor. She didn't know the accountant she fired last year still secretly sent me copies of every statement because he felt guilty watching her bleed Ethan dry. And she absolutely did not know that the weak, quiet, harmless mother-in-law she mocked tonight held every piece of paper that could unravel her entire empire with one phone call. When I got home, I pulled a single folder from my safe, thick, heavy, stuffed with pages she prayed no one would ever see. Financial records, emails, screenshots, contracts, unauthorized withdrawals, illegal transfers, proof of tax evasion. And the most beautiful document of all, a signed clause Avery had never read, the one stating that if she ever engaged in fraudulent activity, the company reverted entirely to the other owner, me. I set the folder on the table and stared at it. Tomorrow morning, this folder would decide her future, her money, her marriage, her entire identity. Tonight, she humiliated me in front of 300 guests. Tomorrow, she would learn what true humiliation feels like. Because as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, one thought pulsed through me like electricity. She picked the wrong mother to underestimate. Avery always bragged that she woke up at 5 a.m. "Successful women rise before the sun," she'd say with that smug little smirk. Well, that morning the sun rose on something she never saw coming. Because by 4:45 a.m. I was already dressed, coffee in hand, and sitting across from the one man Avery always underestimated, the lawyer she assumed had retired years ago, my late husband's closest friend. The only person who knew every clause, every contract, every hidden protection built into the company she bragged about owning. He placed the folder I'd given him beside his briefcase and looked at me over his glasses. "Margot, you understand what will happen when this goes through?" I swallowed, but my voice was steady. "Yes, she earns nothing from the company, nothing from the assets, nothing from the investors, nothing from the accounts she's been draining." "And your son?" My heart twisted. "He'll finally see who she is and who she's never been." He nodded, signed 2 final pages and slid them toward me. One signature. Just one. My hand hovered for a moment, not from hesitation but from the weight of what it meant. Then I signed. In that moment, Avery's empire wasn't hanging by a thread anymore. I owned it, legally, fully, immediately. At 6:12 a.m., the first domino fell. Her business accounts froze. Every credit card linked to the company declined. Her assistant tried to log into their payroll system. Denied. And notification after notification began pinging her phone. I wasn't there to see her reaction, but God, I could picture it perfectly. That tight, panicked blink. The little tremble in her jaw she tried to hide. The moment she realized something was wrong, and worse, something was out of her control. Meanwhile, I sat on my porch with another cup of coffee, watching the sky lighten. For the first time in years, the morning felt peaceful. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Mom, something weird is happening with Avery's business. All her accounts are locked. She's freaking out. My chest tightened, because even after everything, his first instinct was to worry for her. Just breathe, sweetheart. Where is she now? In the living room, crying, yelling at her laptop. I've never seen her like this. I closed my eyes and whispered, you might be seeing the real her for the first time. A pause. Mom, did you do something? There it was, the question that mattered, the moment the truth began moving toward him whether he wanted it or not. But he wasn't ready. Not yet. So I said gently, I did what I had to do. Before he could respond, someone screeched in the background. Avery. Ethan, call the bank. Call them now. They can't do this to me. Her voice cracked, not with anger, but with fear. Real fear. The kind she'd made me feel on his wedding day. Mom, he whispered, I don't think she's telling me everything. No, she wasn't. She never had. Ethan, I'm coming over, because it was time. Time for him to see the woman he married and the mother he'd forgotten he had. And neither of them would ever be the same after today. When I pulled into their driveway, Avery was already outside, pacing back and forth on the porch like a cornered animal. Her hair was a mess, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and she clutched her phone like it was a lifeline. The moment she saw my car, she froze. And then, her face twisted into something I'd never seen from her before. Desperation. Not anger, not smugness, not superiority. Just pure, terrified desperation. She marched straight toward me. What did you do? She hissed, her voice shaking. My accounts are frozen. My payroll system is locked. My business credit cards were declined at SIX in the morning. This is ILL Eagle, Margot. I stepped out of the car calmly, closing the door behind me. Avery, nothing illegal happened, nothing at all. And if something did happen, it's only because you triggered it. Her breathing hitched. Before she could spit out another accusation, the front door opened. Ethan, standing there, barefoot, exhausted, and looking at his wife like he was finally seeing her without the rose-colored glasses she'd been holding over his eyes. Avery, he said quietly, tell me what's going on. She turned toward him too fast, like a drowning person grabbing for the nearest hand. Ethan, baby, listen to me. Someone hacked my business. It's probably one of those jealous competitors. Or maybe it's an accounting glitch. You knew how important my work is. I need you to call the bank right now and fix this. He frowned. Why would I call the bank? Why can't you? Avery's mouth opened, then closed. Because for the first time, she didn't have an answer. I walked up the stairs slowly, feeling the tension twist thicker with each step. Ethan, I said gently, she can't call the bank because they'll ask her to verify the documents she forged. They'll ask her to explain money that doesn't belong to her. They'll ask why she's been funneling your savings into business accounts behind your back. Avery spun on me. Shut up! You're lying! But Ethan didn't look at me, he looked at her. Avery, what is she talking about? Her whole face twitched. And nothing. She's trying to ruin our marriage because she hates me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder, the one she didn't know existed, the one full of proof. You humiliated me yesterday, I said softly, in front of our entire family. But the real humiliation, the one you hoped I'd never discover, is in here. I handed the folder to Ethan. Avery lunged for it. He stepped back like she'd burned him. Ethan, don't! Please don't open that! But it was too late. He opened it. And the world around us fell completely, painfully silent. His eyes scanned the documents. Bank transfers, contracts, emails, receipts, all in Avery's handwriting, all showing exactly how she'd stolen from his accounts and used his mother's name to secure loans. A soft, broken sound escaped him. Avery, how could you do this? Her voice cracked. I did it for us, for our future, for the business. You don't understand. Your mother sabotages everything. She's jealous of me. She always has been. Avery, his voice was barely a whisper. Stop lying. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the railing, her breath jagged. You don't get it, Ethan, she screamed. I built everything. I deserve this. And you built it with money that wasn't yours, I said quietly. Avery whipped toward me, hatred flashing through her tears. You think you've won? You think this makes you the hero? You have no idea what you just started. Ethan stepped between us slowly. No, Avery, he whispered. This ends now. And for the first time in years, my son stood with me, not her. But Avery wasn't finished, not even close, because the next words out of her mouth revealed a secret that made Ethan stagger backward. The first thing I felt when I opened my eyes the next morning was silence, not peaceful silence, the heavy, suffocating kind. The kind that tells you something is coming. My phone was buzzing nonstop on the nightstand, texts, missed calls, voicemails. At least 30 notifications, all from people who'd been at the wedding. And every single message said the same thing. Are you okay? What she did was disgusting. I can't believe Amelia spoke to you like that. I wasn't ready to open any of it yet. My heart was still bruised from the night before, her voice still echoing in my ears. Everyone, meet the woman who begged to stay in our family. God, even remembering it made my chest tighten. I pushed myself up slowly, trying to breathe through the ache. My hands were still shaking from the humiliation. My throat felt raw, like I'd swallowed broken glass. I replayed the moment over and over, the smirks, the laughter, the pity in strangers' eyes, and worst of all, the way my son looked at me like he was seeing his wife for the first time. But I didn't know the half of what was coming, not yet. A soft knock hit my bedroom door. Mom, you awake? It was Daniel. My boy, still in yesterday's tux, eyes red, tie missing, hair a mess. He looked like he hadn't slept a minute. I forced a smile. Come in, sweetheart. He stepped inside, then closed the door behind him like he was afraid someone might overhear us. Mom! His voice cracked. He sat on the edge of my bed and buried his face in his hands. I touched his shoulder gently. What happened? He took a breath, a trembling, broken one. I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know she was going to do that. I thought she loved you. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. It's okay, baby. I'm fine. No, you're not. He lifted his head, eyes glassy. And I can't believe I let her talk to you like that for years. There it was, the truth he'd been afraid to say out loud. He looked devastated, not just embarrassed, destroyed. I cupped his cheek. Daniel, what's going on? He hesitated. Then he said the words that made my stomach drop. Mom, I found something in her office last night, something you need to see. My heart thudded. See what? He stood up, pacing, running a hand through his hair. She went upstairs after the speech. I followed her because I needed answers. She left her laptop open and... He stopped, swallowing hard. There were files, documents, transactions, things she's been hiding from me. Cold prickled up my spine. What kind of things, Daniel? He looked at me like he was afraid the truth might shatter me all over again. Money, Mom. He whispered it like a confession. Money she took. Accounts she shouldn't have access to. Transfers that trace back years. He met my eyes, guilt and fury swirling together. She didn't just humiliate you last night. She's been using me, using you. And I think she stole from you. My breath hitched. Stole from me? Before I could react, my phone buzzed again, a new message lighting up the screen, from an unknown number. I opened it, and the only thing written was, check your email. She's about to lose everything. A shiver tore through me, because whoever sent that message knew exactly what was coming before I did, and when I finally opened my email, that was the moment everything began to unravel, the moment her entire empire started hanging by a thread. The email was from a sender I didn't recognize. No name, no signature, just a blank address ending in a private domain. For a moment, I just stared at it, my pulse thudding in my ears. Daniel hovered beside me, anxious and pale. Mom! Open it! The message loaded instantly, and the first line punched the air right out of my lungs. You weren't supposed to see this, but you deserve to know what she's been doing. My stomach twisted. Daniel leaned closer, eyes narrowing as the email continued. Amelia has been diverting funds from your joint charity account for over 2 years. She used your name, your records, and your trust. I felt my chest tighten, a sharp, crushing pain that made me grip the edge of the mattress. The charity account, the one my late husband and I built together, the one Amelia I insisted on helping with to ease my workload. "Oh my God," Daniel whispered. "Mom, she stole from your foundation." I could barely breathe. My hands went cold, so cold I couldn't even feel my fingertips. But there was more. The email included attachments, bank statements, digital transfers, screenshots of Amelia's login activity, and at the very bottom, one final line, check page 9. That's where you'll find the part you never wanted you to see. My throat went dry as I scrolled. Page 3? Page 5, page 7. Then page 9 opened, and everything inside me turned to ice. It was a document labeled Straight JIC Restructuring Plan, Ownership Transfer. Daniel snatched the phone from my hand and zoomed in. "Wait, Mom. This is about ME. Names, dates, signatures. A plan to transfer Daniel's stake in their business into Amelia's sole ownership by the end of the year." She had prepared meetings, forged drafts, even prepared talking points for lawyers. Daniel staggered back like he'd been punched. She was going to take everything, my business, my assets, my inheritance, everything Dad ever left us, gone. His voice cracked, but not from anger this time, from heartbreak. "This whole marriage," he whispered, "she used me, didn't she?" I touched his arm gently, feeling the weight of years pressing down on us both. "Honey, look at me." He did, eyes wet, jaw trembling. "You didn't see it because you loved her," I said softly. And she counted on that. He sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I was such an idiot. I knelt beside him. "No, you were a husband. You trusted her. That's not stupidity. That's love." But inside, something dark was forming, a truth I hadn't fully allowed myself to admit. Amelia hadn't just humiliated me. She had been planning something much, much bigger, and she wasn't working alone. As I stared again at the anonymous email, a new realization struck me. Someone inside her circle had sent this, someone who wanted her to fall. Before I could say another word, Daniel's phone lit up on the nightstand. "Incoming call, Amelia." We froze. The phone kept vibrating, louder, faster, like it knew something was about to break open. Daniel wiped his face and stared at me. "What do I do?" I swallowed hard. "Answer it," I whispered, "but put it on speaker." He hesitated, then tapped the green button. "Hello?" he said, voice trembling. And what came out of Amelia's mouth was the first sign that she knew her empire was collapsing, and she was desperate enough to do anything to stop it. "Daniel?" Her voice didn't sound anything like the woman who humiliated me in front of 200 wedding guests the night before. Gone was the confidence. Gone was the smug sweetness. This voice was tight, shaky, borderline panicked. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at me, eyes asking silently, "Do I keep going?" I nodded once. "You're on speaker," he said flatly. His tone didn't hide anything now, not anger, not disappointment, not the heartbreak threaded through every word. There was a pause on the other end. Then, "Oh, your mother is there." Not shock, not embarrassment, just that same coldness she always used when she thought she held the power. I felt my jaw clench. "Yes," Daniel said. "She's here. Why?" A shaky breath. "Daniel, please listen. We need to talk. Last night it was a misunderstanding." I laughed, not loudly but enough for her to hear, a low, bitter sound I hadn't meant to let slip. Amelia rushed in immediately. "Carol, I didn't mean any of that. The joke it came out wrong. Weddings are stressful and—" "Stop," Daniel cut in sharply. The firmness in his voice startled even me. "Just tell me why you're calling." Another pause. I could hear faint movement, like she was pacing, her breath hitched. "Daniel, something happened this morning?" "What?" My accounts. They're locked." My eyes shot to his. She continued, voice rising with panic. She couldn't hide anymore. "All of them, Daniel. My business account, my personal account, the investment funds, even the payroll system." I stayed quiet, but Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "Locked how?" he asked carefully. Daniel, frozen. As in, I can't access anything. My cards declined at the coffee shop. My accountant said there's an investigation flagging irregularities, and he asked me if I submitted some kind of audit request. I didn't. I swear I didn't. Her voice cracked now, desperation bleeding through. Daniel looked at me, stunned. I looked back with equal shock. Neither of us had done anything. Daniel, she pleaded, you need to fix this. This is your business too. Your name is on the accounts. Not anymore, he murmured under his breath. She didn't catch it. Please, I don't know what's happening. And then I got a message saying you should check your email and... She cut herself off abruptly. My spine tingled. Daniel leaned forward. What message? He demanded. Nothing, she said quickly. Spam. It was probably spam. No. His voice hardened. Read it. Her breathing grew uneven. Daniel, please, read it. For a full 5 seconds, there was nothing but her shaky exhale. Then I heard clicking. She was opening it. A small gasp spilled through the speaker. Oh my God! Daniel clenched his fists. What does it say? Her voice came out hollow. It says, everything you stole is about to be returned. My blood ran cold. Amelia whispered again, voice trembling. You built an empire out of other people's money. Now, watch what happens when it's not yours to touch. Daniel and I locked eyes. Her empire wasn't just cracking, someone was tearing it apart from the inside. Amelia's breath hitched again. Daniel, who would send something like this? Who hates me this much? I finally spoke, calmly, quietly, but with a weight she couldn't ignore. Maybe someone who finally wants the truth out. She froze. I could hear it. That moment, she realized I wasn't the same woman she mocked last night. I wasn't humiliated anymore. I wasn't scared. I was done being her victim. Carol, she whispered, almost like a warning, but Daniel cut in before she could twist another lie. Amelia, he said, voice low and shaking with fury, we know about the transfers. Silence. We know what you did to my mom's foundation. A sharp intake of breath. And we know about the ownership documents in your office, a small whimper. And trust me, he said, voice trembling with pain and truth, we're just getting started. The line went dead. She hung up. Daniel stared at the phone for a long moment, like he was trying to understand when his marriage turned into a nightmare he hadn't signed up for. I placed a shaking hand on his back, and before I could say anything, his phone buzzed again. A new email. No subject, no name. Just 6 words. Time to show you everything she hid. Daniel's face drained of color. Mom, he whispered, I think whoever's doing this, they aren't finished. Daniel wasn't the same man he'd been yesterday. Not the hopeful groom, not the peacekeeper, not the son who kept making excuses for a woman who'd been chipping away at him, at me, for years. He stood in my living room clutching the anonymous folder of evidence, his eyes hollow yet blazing. Every file he opened cut deeper. Every number, every forged signature, every stolen cent, it all peeled the blindfold off piece by piece. Finally, he whispered, voice trembling, Mom, I let her do this. I let her hurt you. I let her hurt us. I stepped closer, touched his shoulder gently. Sweetheart, you trusted someone you loved. That's not a crime. But what she did to you, to me, to our family, that is. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. The auditors are inside her office. They've frozen every account. Daniel blinked, stunned. She doesn't know. She has no idea what's waiting for her. Neither of us spoke as we drove downtown. He stared out the window, breathing hard. I gripped the wheel, praying silently for strength. For him, for myself, for whatever storm we were about to walk into. When we reached the glass tower where Amelia ran her business, chaos was already unfolding. Employees were gathered in the lobby, whispering anxiously. Phones were ringing nonstop. Security officers were escorting 2 accountants upstairs, and one woman pacing by the elevators gasped the moment she saw us. Daniel, she whispered, touching his arm, they're saying the company funds are gone. That someone siphoned money for months. They suspended Amelia. She's in the conference room screaming at legal. For a moment, Daniel closed his eyes. Then he nodded. Thank you, he said softly. Where is she? We rode the elevator up in silence, the air tight as a held breath. When the doors opened, we heard her before we saw her. Amelia's voice, shrill, frantic, fighting for oxygen. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen? That's my money, my business. You can't do this." A lawyer's voice cut through her panic. "Ma'am, the internal audit found significant unauthorized transfers. Everything is under investigation. Those were business expenses. They were transfers to your personal luxury accounts." "That's a lie." Daniel stepped into the doorway. All the blood drained from her face. Daniel, she stammered. "Baby, this is all a misunderstanding. Just tell them it's fine. Tell them you authorized everything." "No," he said quietly. "I didn't authorize any of it." Her eyes flicked toward me and filled with venom. "This is your mother, isn't it?" She snarled. "She poisoned you against me. She's been jealous since the day we met." "Oh, I was never jealous," I said calmly, "but I was observant." The lead auditor lifted a thick file. "Mrs. Harper, we have clear evidence of embezzlement, forgery, and misappropriation of company assets." Amelia's voice cracked. "That's MY Company. I built it." Daniel shook his head. "You built it with money you stole from us, from our family, from my mother." She froze. Daniel reached into the folder the anonymous sender had provided and placed it gently on the table. Every document, every transfer, every lie, her empire trembling under the weight of the truth. "Amelia," he said softly, painfully, "I loved you, I believed in you, but you used me, and you humiliated my mother in front of everyone we knew." I swallowed hard, emotion rising in my throat. Not revenge, not triumph. Just the ache of a mother watching her son confront the wreckage of his own heart. "You broke something I can't fix," he whispered. Her lip quivered. "So what now? You're just going to leave me?" Daniel exhaled slowly. "I'm not leaving you." She looked relieved, until he added, "I'm letting the truth handle you." At that moment, the auditors closed the folder. "Mrs. Harper," the lead attorney said, "effective immediately. You are suspended pending full investigation. Legal will contact you regarding next steps. Please gather your personal items." Amelia's face crumpled. "Daniel, please tell them this isn't what it looks like. You can't let them take everything from me." Daniel stepped back. "I'm not taking anything from you," he said quietly. "But you took plenty from us." She looked around the room, at the auditors, at the staff peeking nervously from their desks, at me, at the cold truth caving in on her, and reality finally hit. Her empire, her image, her illusion of power, all of it was collapsing. And she'd built the detonator herself. As security gently escorted her out, she turned one last time, eyes red and wild. "You will regret this, both of you." I met her gaze, calm as still water. "No, dear," I said softly. "We regret ever trusting you." The elevator doors closed on her shock-stricken face. Daniel sagged against the wall, shoulders shaking, not with anger now, but release, relief, grief, freedom.